welcome everybody and those who are listening to the recording later. My name is Kaylee, and this is an online and IRL workshop where we talk about different topics to help us think about the internet differently. My work focuses on marketing and branding and growth for startups and small businesses. And along the way in my career, I made my way to tech, specifically organizations researching and trying to understand the impact of technology on us. And so I think that it's so important when we go about building or growing our businesses or even navigating the online space to challenge things as they are and make sure that we're always finding ways that work for us. And I've been really inspired getting to know our guest today. She's a Philly-based founder, and I'm also based in Philly. And I think Helena, who you'll get to know through this conversation, just approaches all of this in such a great way because I really see you, Helena, as somebody who's always staying true to themselves throughout this process. I have never seen you flustered, even on any of these panels. And that's why I'm so passionate about this topic. The more people I get to know using technology, trying to create their own products, figuring out how to even support their lifestyles in a better way, both in terms of making money off of a product, but also in terms of just designing software that works for them, it's becoming even more of an important conversation. So, we have a few different questions that we'll go through. I will probably stop sharing my screen at this point. But why don't we get started by Helena, you telling us a bit about yourself?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for joining and for those on the call and for having me. Um, yeah, I'm Helena. I'm the founder of PamPam. Um, and I'm also a software designer. And yeah, PamPam's a way to connect to your local community through maps. And so concretely, PamPam is a custom map maker. So you can like make interactive custom maps with it. And so, for example, if you are, a nonprofit and you want to show the projects that you've done, then you can put that on a map, embed it on your website, share it out as a link. Or if you're like running a community, then you can, create a collaborative map with your community to show, things to do that are relevant to your community. So any custom interactive map, you can make with PamPam. And yeah, we're all about like getting people to be connected to the resources around them, whether it's like events, places, or people.
Yeah, I love that. Do you want to share your screen to give people the look and feel right away? I'll
Yes.
also drop the link in the chat, and of course it'll be linked for anybody who's watching after. But PamPam is so cute. It is so cute. It is absolutely one of those softwares where you're just like, wait a minute, I did not know that this existed, and now I need it in my life. So yeah, walk us through. So Designer's Guide to San Francisco, this is what it looks like.
Yeah, so this is a map that was made in PamPam. And so this is like a link. And you can see this one here is like a crowdsourced map. So all of these different people added these spots to the map. So this one was made for in time for Config, which is Figma's design conference. And so these were like things to do recommended by designers at the time of the conference. So it's like fairly specific kind of niche for that audience. So this is like what a collaborative map looks like. Here's another map made in PamPam. This one is by these two artists in Philly. They have a project that's called Getting to Green, which is to show different bus routes that you can take to different outdoor and parks in Philadelphia. And so they took kind of their concept and they made it in this PamPam map. And so like, these colors were picked by the artist. These illustrations were made by the artists. So this is like a really interesting example of like a very custom thing that you could do with PamPam. But again, all going back to like, this is, a community of people who want to connect to the outdoors but live in the city, and then kind of showing how you can use public transit for that. And then the last example I'll show is this New York City kids map. So this has like over 300 spots of like different things that you can do in New York City with kids. And so again, here the communities like parents in New York who want, things to do in New York. And this one's actually kind of like an AI map, so you can chat with it and ask it more personalized questions. So yeah, PamPam looks like this, kind of works like this, but every PamPam map is kind of like its own website or Notion doc. It's like you can really customize it to how you want. And certainly depending on, like, what your community's interested in and what their needs are.
Wow, that's awesome. I was looking at that and every time I see one of those maps, especially because of like the customization of the emoji types that people use and how they create their own, it just makes me so happy. And then I just have a moment where I'm like, we have come so far from MapQuest. MapQuest. I don't know wherever that founder is, whoever that founder is, they're probably going to listen to this and be like, wait, I want to invest in Helena. What do you mean what do you mean she's growing it with her family? What do you mean? We've come so far. So that is really cool. I'd be curious to hear, where the idea from Pam Pam came from in the first place. Was it a MapQuest thing? And MapQuest, for anybody listening, it was just like a website where you can Google directions. Actually, it was before Google Maps. So you you had to go on there and look for directions. But yeah, where did Pam Pam come from?
Yeah, and print it out.
Yeah, you had to print it out.
Um, so I've been working on creative tools for a while. I worked on Coda, which is a doc editor, and then I was at Figma as well, which is a design editor. And then my co-founder, who's also my husband, worked on local and map products. So he actually worked at Google Maps, and he worked at Facebook, where he built some local apps that were very map centric. So you could see the certain local things on a map as well. So we had always been working on side projects, and we've also moved around a lot. So like I've lived in 9 different cities, in 3 different continents. And so I've always had to kind of orient myself around a place, try to understand, what's happening around me, what's the community around me like. And so we thought it would be cool. Like, why haven't maps become personal? Why shouldn't they feel like a canvas the way that a lot of like all of these other tools feel? So what would kind of like a flexible map canvas felt like? And we're both designers, so it was kind of like from like this kind of designer question in some ways, but also like in a really personal way of like, your relationship to all these places that you live in or that you're moving to are always so different. And so like a map should feel as personal as that.
Yeah, I love that. 9 cities is incredible to have gone through and lived in all of those cities. And what I also like about Pam Pam is that it brings out different things that when you're just looking at a map itself, you wouldn't know all of those different types of secret places or looking at it from a certain lens. I will never forget either the story you told me about the one creator, or I think it was a person that used it for matchbooks, if you want to give that example real quick.
Yeah, so one of our users, they run a Substack called Oh What a Match, and an Instagram account too. It's really fun Instagram account, where they highlight different matchboxes with different designs on them. And so their community is like all about that, like people who love matchboxes and who collect them, I guess. That's like the main thing. And so they use PamPam maps to create city guides for where you can get really cool matchboxes. So they have like Washington, D.C., New York, Rome, Milan. They're actually based in Switzerland. So that's a really, really neat example of like, it's like it's like a guide to New York City, but through the lens of these matchbox collectors. And so it's really interesting because it's like a restaurant that you might see on there, you might see it on a different map or like in your basic, things to do in New York City guide. But when you look at it through the lens of this community, it's like it takes on a totally different feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that story. So you and your husband, you had these different design challenges along the way around maps, and then you worked together on the problem of, okay, how can we actually make this look good? What would it look like? Are you both, since you're both designers, do you play a similar role or have similar lenses within the product build, or do you carry different roles as a team?
Yeah, we carry different roles. We've both worked together in the past, actually on the same team, like in a work in like a corporate context. And so that was actually really helpful in helping us see like our different strengths. So with PamPam, I'm like the CEO. And so I do some high level design for it, so a lot of like modeling and when we're thinking about new features and that sort of thing. So I do that, and then I also do like all the marketing, run the social, I talk to customers, do like all the user facing stuff. And then my co-founder and husband, he does like the UI design, so like the really specific design, and he does most of the coding. So we've built PamPam like design and coded every single thing ourselves. And so he's the engineer and the designer. And I do some front end, I'll code our landing pages and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. That makes it really clear, like the different roles where you have a good balance. And do you all have anybody else on your team right now or that comes in and out, I guess, along the way?
Yeah, it comes in and out, but we don't have another person kind of like full time right now. But we've collaborated with a lot of different people along the way. We have some sound in PamPam, like we've had a sound designer, we've worked with copywriters, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Wow, sound designer, that's cool. That's I didn't realize that would come up and makes a lot of sense, I guess, when you think about it. So now that we know, how Pam Pam sort of came about, and how old is Pam Pam, by the way?
PamPam's gonna be like live in the world 2 years in December.
What? Oh, cool. Okay, well, this is great timing for this conversation. Then we got an anniversary coming up. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So
Congratulations. Also, by the way, for everybody, Pam Pam stands for maps backwards. It's
yeah.
map backwards. And it took me 2 years to learn that too. Other people figured it out faster. But going back to when you and your husband started this idea, started to explore it. I want to also, before I ask you this question, kind of bring in this other picture of the typical journey that we hear when people have an idea for a startup, have an idea for software startup specifically. The picture we all have in our minds, and it might not be for everybody, but being in this space, in the tech space for a while, this is what I think of. I think of somebody coming up with their idea for a software company, potentially in their basement, definitely with a hoodie on, some sort of, hoodie with the tech logo on it. I think of people, working night and day to be able to build this app. I think about people going right out to try and find investors, to go into pitch competitions and hackathons, and then naturally moving to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and then, up and up from there to the Mark Zuckerberg levels. That's what I think about, or at least, takes over a lot of the conversations we have about software and how to grow a software company. Helena was at our recent event around building in public for founders, which also adds to this culture of if you're a founder and you're creating a company, particularly a software company, there's this grind, there's this layer of or level of visibility that you need in order to get money and like win big. And I think it's a win that the world has Pam Pam right now. And I'm curious, like back at that moment, what was the path that you and your husband took as you were designing and rolling out this product? And how may it have been different than that picture we often have in our heads?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I think there are a couple of like key differences. One was that we started PamPam as a side project. I do think, that I think that definitely does happen. And so it depends, but like that was one thing. We did start it as a side project, kind of thinking it wouldn't really go anywhere. And then once we saw that there was more interest, we were like, oh, okay, like we can like continue pursuing this. But we worked on it on the side for I mean, actually, when we launched it, we were still working on it on the side, kind of like the whole time. And then I did work on it full time for a year. And actually, recently, I went back to a full time job where they know about PamPam and they're really supportive of that. And I work on PamPam now again on the side.
Mhm.
So that's been kind of interesting as well. But I think that's like one key difference. The other one is like, yeah, we're in Philly, so we didn't have to like move out anywhere to do it. That's another kind of key thing. And yeah, and we haven't raised them, I guess that's clear by the probably clear by the title of the talk, but we have not raised money, and don't plan to,
Mhm.
as of now. And that was definitely a thing that we did go back and forth quite a lot. Honestly, mostly because a lot of pressure from it. I think from the beginning we were not really interested in raising money. There was definitely some interest from some investors. We talked to some investors, but none of the conversations really panned out. And we felt like, oh, we don't really want these conversations to pan out. So anyways, so all of those things.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense sometimes where it's like the opportunities come in and out and then it settles the way that it's supposed to. And PamPam as a product is monetized. You have some paid tiers, right?
Yeah. Yes. And so I guess another maybe key difference is, and when people in general, software, part of the reason why it's so difficult to build it out is that a lot of software is free, first of all, and people don't often expect to pay for software. And that's because these companies are, subsidizing a lot of what we do with software. So from the beginning, we were very clear that we wanted to have PamPam be a sustainable business and that we were going to monetize it. We didn't monetize it right away, mostly because we hadn't built it out. But yeah, right now it is monetized. We have customers, and we don't, and it makes some money. So that's great.
Yeah. And are a lot of those customers, how do they find you? How do they find PamPam?
Yeah, most of the customers, we found organically, just through, they find us through Google search. I post a lot of tutorials on YouTube. That has been like a really great channel for us. Some stuff has worked on TikTok. And earlier on, we had a lot of press, and that really helped us. So we had like a feature in Business Insider last year, and we were in Fast Company twice, and that was definitely helpful.
Oh, cool. Um, so do you think then, thinking about that like whole like Silicon Valley or bust versus the path that you all took, do you think that there is a third way between scaling fast or like staying super small?
Yes, definitely. One thing that we thought a lot about is like, um, y- you know, deciding to take on investor money and deciding to like, y- you know, I mean that's a decision that you can make. Deciding to like grow really fast or not is actually not. That's less of a decision in some ways. Like, your product is gonna like grow a lot or not. I mean, even if you raise money, that doesn't mean that your product's gonna grow a lot. But yes, I think the third path that we thought a lot about is like, um, there is a level of sustainability that can work well if you are a small team. But the minute that you decide to like take on investor money, that option is like completely cut off from you.
Mm,
So like, if we had decided to take on money and we weren't scaling like crazy right now, like we would be dead. But because we didn't do that, and our costs are really low, and we built PamPam ourselves, it works out as a business for us.
mm,
And so it really depends, on what, how, you can think about it as a regular business and not as like a tech company business, which is like, oh, we have to subsidize all these costs. We have to grow like crazy, otherwise we're gonna make it. And if you were to run like a regular other business, you wouldn't be thinking like that. You would be thinking, well, what are my costs? How much, how much is it going to cost me to run this thing? And that's how we've been thinking about it from the beginning.
Yeah. And so would you say like with that contrast between like the hyper growth and the sustainability along the way, what choices or trade-offs were super significant to get to the balance you have today? Obviously, the investors are that wasn't the route. Were there any other like choice points you had along the way that made it clear, you know what, we're gonna do this, it's better for us, it's better for our lifestyle?
Um, I think, um, I think how we decided to monetize it, I think is like one of those things. We do have different pricing tiers, and we also do have like a free plan as well. And so a lot of those kind of like decisions were based on like, how much can we give away because that does create some growth, but then how much is ultimately like what we have to charge in order like to make this like a reasonable, like, for this to be like sustainable and profitable. So I think like that is like a core decision there. And then in terms of like the product, as it is, this like software that we're building, something that we definitely think a lot about is like uh just keeping it simple and keeping it like very, very focused on like a specific use case. So like with PamPam, you can make maps to like um, put pins on a map basically. And so for example, a lot of people ask, hey, can I do like data visualization on it? Like I want to like highlight a neighborhood or something like that. Um, and and we might do that one day, but that's an example of like, that would really kind of alter a little bit of like what makes PamPam so simple. Um, and that simplicity definitely factors into why we're able to maintain it at the level of quality that a two-person team can maintain it. So we don't build a lot of features into it. We try to be really, really strict. In fact, we're even thinking about like sunsetting some features that we built this year because they're not getting enough usage and we don't want to maintain them anymore. And so there's I think like the simplicity of it is really important, and not like over kind of indexing ourselves in that way.
Yeah, that's a good mantra to think about the simplicity and even the sustainability because I think like another really common trope, I'll call it, or common phrase is the move fast and break things mentality from startup world. Um, Saying simple or thinking about what is sustainable is kind of the opposite of that. Is there anything else you would add, like in your head as you make decisions about the product?
In terms of not of moving fast and or in
Yeah,
terms.
well, or we're even like, what do you think about that moving fast and breaking things? Is that part of how you're growing your business, or is there other things that you balance more?
Yes. Yeah, we definitely, I think definitely you want to be like, well, one thing is like, it's just me and my husband. We do, building software brings us a lot of joy. Like we genuinely love it. Like otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. We work nights. And so part of it, what makes it fun for us is like getting to build new things and like trying out different things in PamPam. So I think when I think about like moving fast, in a positive way, it's like, oh, what bet should we make? What risk do we want to take? What new thing do we want to try that's like aligned to, what our customers need and like what makes sense for PamPam. So like that feels good. And sometimes you don't want to like overthink those things and you just kind of like want to go for it. So I think that is important when you're building software and like finding ways to test that out in like an easy way. Um, but I think the other thing that we definitely think a lot about, kind of on the flip side of that is like, again, like we're just a two-person team. Like anything that we build, we like need to maintain. And I think because we're both software designers, like our quality bar is like fairly high. And it's kind of like it's like a portfolio piece for us as well at the same time. And so it's like if something's not like, not working so well, it really we feel like it really reflects on us. So I think the other mantra that we like to think about is just like, things of quality take time, like moving at the speed of trust.
Mhm.
And so we definitely are very conscious of that and, always try to make things that like we're really proud of.
Yeah, I love the moving at the speed of trust thing. I heard that earlier this year too, from another software founder, and it really shifts you. You know, when you hear that, it really brings a whole different energy to it. So it sounds like you and your husband are very aligned, both in like the quality of the product, you know, the values that you have there. Now I have to ask, what has it been like to build a company with your husband? Have you always shared the same vision or approach things the same way?
Yeah, I think no, and even now I think we're still like a good balance on that. And I think it does help to take on like those different roles. And it's like any type of like role playing, right? You know, so it's like I'm like playing like the marketer in terms of Pam Pam. And so a lot of, sometimes I'm like, no, like no, like it is good enough now. Like let's get it out there, or like, or like it's not in our DNA to be like, oh, let's shout about this thing. But I'm like, no, we have to because otherwise someone's gonna hear about it. So I think those things have kind of like emerged, and that's been like a really big learning opportunity for both of us. But I think the core thing that makes it possible is again that like we both are like just like genuine nerds who love making software and like would be doing something like this even if it wasn't making money, like honestly. And so I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, I love the clear, like, it's like what hat are you wearing or where are you coming from when you're sharing this perspective, or I'm going to balance you out by being the marketer in the room and saying, let's do this, bring this energy. Do you all have like other boundaries or ways of working that you've learned over time that helps protect your relationship from the business decisions? For example, even one of my business partners that I work with, she's from sales and I'm in marketing. Actually, even my boyfriend who's over there, he's in sales and I'm in marketing. Notoriously, sales and marketing, they got friction. So we have to balance that. But what does it look like for you all?
Yeah, I think I think the roles thing definitely helps a lot. Like, okay, I'm putting on this hat right now, like this is where I'm coming from. And then I think like I guess like in all kind of like work things, like making time to have different types of conversations. So it's like, okay, in this conversation, we're more just like, wallowing, like having a big think, like I don't really know what I'm talking about yet, and like kind of defining that space. And then other times being more like, no, we really need to make a decision on this. And I think why that becomes more important working, as a husband and wife in our home is because these conversations might be happening at different times of the day, in the kitchen, in the dining room. And so you kind of need to like almost create this like, invisible, like this is the type of conversation that's happening right now, even though we're not like in a conference room or we're not like by the whiteboard or whatever. We didn't name this meeting, in the video call and stuff. So I think like being really clear about those things and like almost kind of like utilizing those kind of little, those like formats, I think is really helpful.
Do you ever like how do you navigate if one person is more in the Pam Pam headspace than another, or like super like, when you get into the design flows
Oh
and
yeah.
everything? How do you do
It's
that?
a lot of like pausing and being like, should we have this conversation right now? Like, are you ready to have this conversation right now? And a lot of times it's like, no, I'm like in the middle of a sandwich or something. Like I'm not ready for it. So that like we definitely check ourselves a lot like that.
hmm And do you have like consistent times where you'll always talk about it? Like, do you have like a Friday morning stand up?
Yeah, so we work yeah, we have like a schedule that we work at nights. And then yeah, Monday mornings we'll try to do like a Pam Pam sync in the morning. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my other question of like what the day-to-day lifestyle looks for it, because I think I imagine a big benefit of growing and running Pam Pam the way that you do is that it does have that flexibility for you to have control not over just like the product but the lifestyle that comes with it.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It's super, super flexible. But we work a lot, and I think there's definitely always like, oh, like how do you do it? And it's like I like don't go out at night a lot is like the truth, that like people don't really want to hear. So we limit that, and I overall feel like I have like extreme flexibility, but like yeah, day to day, we both have day jobs right now. We also have a 5-year-old, and so we have like a first shift, which is our jobs, and then we have a second shift, which is our kid, and then we have a third shift, which is Pam Pam.
That's I've heard that type of thinking before of like the shifts or one of the thing I'm really taking away from you is like switching into the context of it all. So you can kind of enjoy where you're at when you're there, right?
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. And that's definitely the case. It's like when I'm in my day job, it's like I'm doing that job. And when I'm with my kid, I'm doing that. And then same with Pam Pam. And all those things kind of overlap at times. But no, but I think having those different like mental spaces for that is really, really helpful.
Mhm. And then that's where you or one can feel like they actually have some type of balance instead of it, kind of going through your whole life. Or I don't know, does that help you having more of a balance with it or making it feel sustainable?
Definitely, definitely. And I think like they each give me different things at the end of the day. And I think that for me is like a balance. Like when I'm, with my kid, that's like, that's one way of being. My day job again, I have found, a job where they know about Pam Pam, they're really supportive. I also have a lot that I do there, but I like being like not an entrepreneur when I'm in that job. I don't have to make the really big decisions. So that's really cool in its own way. And then so yeah, it all kind of balances out in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. So what does like a really great day running a small software company look like for you or running Pam Pam within your day to day with those three different shifts?
Yeah, a great day in that case would be like seeing like a customer example in the wild. That's always like really, really fun because all the maps, we do have like some trends and some themes that come up, but a lot of times, all the maps are quite different. And so it's always like fun to see like, oh, like this community is using it for like this parade or like this flower festival or something. So that's always really, really fun. And then like a really fun, like awesome, like day would definitely include like, when we're building something new, that's always really fun. And like seeing like how that's coming out and working on that with my husband is always really like that's like the most enjoyable part for sure.
Oh, fun. Does your 5-year-old know about it or know much about maps too?
Yeah, he definitely knows about it. He definitely knows about it, and he's always like drawing maps, and says that he wants to work on Pam Pam and like drawing the logo on cards and stuff. Yeah, so.
Oh, that's so cute. So, what do you think that people maybe need to know about working with their families or just having better boundaries and growing sustainably as entrepreneurs for small businesses, whatever it looks like? We talked about the shifts, we talked about, different perspectives, but maybe one thing that's come up for you all that you didn't expect that you think people need to know.
Yeah, something that we didn't expect. Um, I mean, I think I guess it's like all things like when the go like when the going gets tough, like you still need to like be making decisions and you can't be like, oh, let's just like ignore this problem for now. Which like, you might also not want to do in your personal life, but like, you can. And sometimes we all do because like you don't really want to have those conversations. But at the end of the day, it's like, Pam Pam is a business. Like we need to make some calls. Um, and so I think that's maybe I don't know if I didn't expect that per se, but it's like you do need to be ready for that. And again, it's like that those things like it's like you're gonna need to dedicate like specific time for that. And it's like, yeah, it's not always gonna be fun.
Yeah. I think I remember you telling this story too at another Philly panel. But And this will get into like our next set of questions just around maybe how it looks different potentially now with AI compared to maybe when you first got started. Um, I think the example was around customer support or supporting your customers. So I think the example that you shared was that you have users from all over the world, right? So when customers need support, they're talking to you directly, right?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think getting to the point where we have customers and we have to provide customer support is something that like my designer brain did not fully comprehend like 2 years ago, where I was like, oh, ha, so fine. So yeah, that's definitely, yeah, I guess I didn't necessarily see that coming, but yeah, we can get into that stuff, and that's definitely like a place where we use AI and has been tremendously helpful.
Yeah, because if you think, I think about like an in-person store or an in-person business, and you can maybe go or you open up your shop like 9 to 5 and then you leave and then people know that you're not there. But I think something that tends to happen with online businesses, whether it's software or even, digital marketing, freelancing or whatever, there's no real start and stop. It's just you either turn your computer off or it comes with you in a different room because the internet is always on. So that's one thing that can really grind at sustainability or making you feel like you have a balance if you don't have a good plan in place. So, how did you all navigate that? And what was the role that AI played? And then I have, of course, a few more questions to ask you about AI, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the other thing is like when you are building software, people like a lot of the times think, oh, there must be like a huge team behind this software thing. Or just like anonymity as well. It's like or maybe they don't know if like but they're just like, "Oh, it's just like a software thing and who knows what's going on behind that." Um and so the expectation of customer support is like really high. It's like people expect us to be replying right away, to be able to resolve issues really, really fast. Um, so that I think is definitely interesting. We use intercom, and it's they had and I'm sure you've all like used intercom like when you're interfacing with some other product, but they have a product called Fin, and so that's like an AI agent that replies on your behalf using the knowledge from your knowledge articles. And so that's been amazing. So I use that like the hours that I'm not on the customer support hours, and then my customer support hours are like in the evening. Um, so that's been really like a really that I think that is like really an amazing example of like we just wouldn't be able to do that without Intercom's AI product, truly.
right. Have there been any other AI tools or even just like approaches or processes that have allowed you to build in that type of better way, like without the really traditional, infrastructure that could really weigh down a small team? What have you found to work best for you all?
Yeah, I think so. Like besides Intercom, I think the other two like AI tools that we use a lot. One is like Cursor for coding. So, we do code, but then Cursor makes everything like a lot faster. And certain things like for me, I'm less good at coding. So some things are just like now possible that weren't possible before. For Carlo, who is an engineer, he's just like much faster than he was able to before. Or now we'll like quickly prototype something with Cursor in PamPam our product and then be like, oh no, that's not feeling right. And we don't do it. So that's been really, really amazing as well. And then I use ChatGPT for like a bunch of stuff that is just like new to me. And I'm a software designer. And so even thinking about like marketing or like certain customer support stuff, like I'll definitely use ChatGPT to like just ask questions about.
Yeah. It really is clear even with those examples that it really opens up what's potentially possible. Like I think we all make assumptions or even just the examples we were talking about earlier with like what you hear in Silicon Valley. You make assumptions about the kind of path you're on, but that doesn't have to be what that path looks like. And there's many different tools or just other possibilities that can open up that changes the game. Um, has have those new tools or just that new way of learning or potentially growing changed your vision or how you define success for the product?
Mm, I mean, I think it's like allowed us to go further than we originally expected. And so in that sense, like definitely yes, because it's like now I'm like, oh, I think, if it did grow in whatever amount of time it took for that to happen, like I think we would be able to support it. Which is something that like I think I don't know if I would have felt that way without some of these tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's like at its core, like yes.
What is the ultimate like North Star vision look for Pam Pam? What would be like success to you all?
Yeah. I think that's like in some ways like always shifting for us. I think what stays like really core to it is like ultimately like we want to create something that we're like really proud of personally. And if there are some like amazing examples of like how communities are using it, which like we feel like there already are, then I think that like that does feel successful for us. And then I think already where we've gotten to was kind of like the baseline, which is like, it's like it's running, it's out there, it is profitable, and so it's like it's always kind of shifting. I think for us, like the next goal is just like, okay, yeah, like we do want to grow that. So like we're uninterested in growth, like we definitely want to grow it. Um, and so always kind of seeing like what is working for our customers, how can we kind of like yeah just make it more awesome for them. So I don't know, the North Star right now is like like keep on making it quality. I think that's like the goal.
Yeah. And I love too what you were talking about the different communities popping up and how cool it is to see that. And I think what's so special about your product, which of course I love with online and IRL, is that it really bridges online and IRL together. So how do you measure, besides like usage, how do you measure or even look at success with a product that's designed for connection, with a product that's designed to bring communities together? Anything else you would add there?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the way that we think about PamPam is like, every community has kind of like their own map, and so they're kind of like, the mayors of that, the moderators of that. And so ultimately, like we're like trying to, give the control and the power to these people who know their community the most. And so, connection might feel differently amongst those different communities. So for us, I think it's always thinking about like, you know, how are these, are these people the ones who are creating the map and supporting their community, like do they feel like in control? Do they feel like empowered by this? And yeah, what benefit are they having from that?
Yeah. And would you say, or I'm curious to hear what role like your community has played in shaping Pam Pam, whether it's your San Francisco community or like your designer community, how has that come into play along the way?
Yeah, for sure. So when we first, like before we launched PamPam publicly, I was on Twitter. I was like on design Twitter. I have since come off of Twitter, and it is a little sad because Twitter used to like have like be normal and like you could make friends on it and stuff. And but at the time that was still the case, and that was a really awesome way of getting feedback. Like I did a whole bunch of, like over 40 calls with people, just like showing them the prototype at the time and asking questions. And that was really, really awesome way of shaping PamPam for sure. That was like really, really fundamental. And a lot of those people were kind of like designers or different technologists or people who kind of like had a notion of like personal software sort of thing. So that was really, really cool. And that was like really fundamental to how we first launched PamPam for sure.
Wow, yeah. I feel like I can picture that, seeing the different types of people that would come together. Is there a feature that you had early on that you started off with that's like completely not on the table anymore that you were surprised about?
that we don't have anymore.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, we had a lot of weird things. But I mean, I guess at the beginning we were really thinking about it as a canvas. So, PamPam, still does have like pens and markers so you can draw directly on the map. And we do still have it, but it's definitely not used a lot. And it was definitely the sort of thing where like it made a lot of sense to how we were thinking about it when we launched it, and like doesn't make that much sense anymore. So I think that's like an interesting one. Another one that we actually did get rid of is at the beginning, PamPam was like very multiplayer, so you could see people's names when you were all in the map together,
Mm,
like Figma. So you could see like, I would say, everybody's name when you're in the map. And that was really fun and it was really nice. And part of me wants to bring it back. But a lot of brands and businesses use PamPam and they treat it more like a website. And so it's just really distracting when you go into one of these PamPam apps and then you see like 50 cursors flying around. So I don't know, maybe that's something we'll bring back like as an option, like as a toggle somewhere. But that was also something that like once we realized that actually a lot of brands and businesses were using PamPam, it just didn't make so much sense in that context.
right. Is there anything that has bubbled up and, become really popular over time in terms of a feature that you didn't expect?
A lot of the boring features, yes. And I think that ends up being the case because you learn a lot about like what people actually need that before you were just kind of like imagining things. And so I think most people make PamPam maps from a spreadsheet. So like you have all your data in a spreadsheet and then you import it into a PamPam map. And we did never consider that like the first, 8 months or something into PamPam. And again, it wasn't until like, brands and businesses had a lot of really good reasons why they wanted to like have their data in a spreadsheet. For collaboration, a lot of their data was already in spreadsheet format, so they just wanted it like that. So, stuff like that where it's like, okay, like it's not like so fun per se, but it's like it's really crucial to how people are using it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything that you've seen, and this is coming from again the online and IRL place of curiosity. Um, is there a feature that you think specifically gets people to go out to their local communities, to go outside? Because it's cool to interact with, but the goal of the map is to get people to go to different places. So if you had to guess or if you have any information on that, I'd be curious to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main way right now is like for a lot of like for citywide events, citywide festivals, um, people will use PamPam to like map out the different events happening across the city. So I think that's a really interesting case where it's like, it's like time box, it's like there's like a week that all the things are happening. And I think we're all used to like the traditional like list, which is also super important. You just want to know where the dates, like what date things are happening. But I think it is also like really nice to be able to see, hey, this is like happening near me. I could as well go there. Or like these two events are happening in the same area. Like let's check both of those out.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing, too, that I wanted to ask you on the thread of the online and IRL is about your marketing. I think it's really important when we think about sustainability, especially when it comes to marketing now, to balance online and IRL marketing, even if you're a digital software company. And I know you all have tried different things. So tell us a bit more about how PamPam has been outside or what you
Yeah.
do for your marketing.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things we've done is this series called On a Walk, where we've collaborated with other people here in Philly to host public walks that people can join. Sometimes they're free, sometimes it's like pay like for a donation. Oftentimes it goes to like a nonprofit. And so the maps, the walking routes are mapped on PamPam, but during the walk, you're just like on a walk. There's not really like a phone or anything involved. There's no like PamPam really involved in the walk. And it's just a way to like be in community together and collaborate with different people in the community. So that's been really cool. We've done like actually this Saturday will be our 14th walk.
Wow. Okay, cool. I love hearing that. And I think it's important because often when you're in the rush to really scale fast or just like in that hustle grow mode, you forget about those real points of human connection that can actually pour back into the mission in the first place. And the walks is such a great example of that. So building on this around just like the bigger picture, you built PamPam in a way that supports your life, you and your husband. What larger cultural shift do you think needs to happen for this to become more common?
Yeah. I think one thing that has made this possible for me and my husband is that we've built PamPam ourselves. Like we have collaborated with people and you know and paid them, but like in smaller things. But the core PamPam we've built, and like if you're trying to build something like this out, it is really expensive. So that I mean, I guess that's like the other obvious reason why people raise like you need to hire a developer. It's really really expensive. So I think the main reason it's worked is because we are building it ourselves. And so I think the main cultural shift that needs to happen is that more people need to build like, you know, software themselves. And I think it's like increasingly way and way more possible than it was a few years ago and will increasingly become so because of AI.
Mm,
Um, and so, I think that that's really exciting. And, I think, we know other Philly founders who are definitely doing that, and building, software either with AI or with just no code tools as well. And I think those are really, really viable options. And it doesn't always need to be like such like a big tech fancy thing necessarily. It doesn't, depending on what your idea is. And so I think there's yeah, like, I think it's also been interesting building in Philly. I think Philly has like a really big like DIY ethos. It's very much just like do what you can to get it done sort of vibe. And I feel like that has been really infectious and very different than, than like the Silicon Valley kind of way of doing things. So yeah, I think like do it yourself and then also like, involve your community where you can, which I think is also very like Philly rooted. So yeah.
mhm. Yeah. I love that you said that about Philly because it is true. And so, give it, I don't know, a year, all the vibe coders, we're gonna become the vibe coders all over the world. People are gonna be like, do it yourself here. What advice or what would you say to a creative or entrepreneur or, mom, family, husband and wife team, whatever it looks like, who wants to build their first tech product, but feels intimidated? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would say like start really small. I think a lot of like, something I think like one advice that people give a lot is like start by just like building the community. And that's something that I wish I had done more with PamPam. I definitely did not do that. And like I try to build some of the community later on. And I wish that I had done more of that from the beginning. So I think like start with the community, and that could be like, in whatever form that makes sense, whether it's like IRL events or an Instagram account or a newsletter, whatever it may be. And then from there, I think just like going to like, what is the core of the onion? What is like the main thing that you want to test? And like start with that and like don't add on all this other stuff to it. I think, yeah, going back to something I said earlier, I think like we think a lot about like simplicity means that we can maintain it, which means like we can like keep doing this sustainably. And so starting like very small and like only adding on when it makes sense, I think.
Yeah, that really resonates. And I like how you use the example of like the core of the onion because you have to peel back sometimes to get to that, yeah, that the heart of the thing. It's very easy, especially with our online lives where we're seeing all of these different things. You can open up, endless amount of tabs to instead of keep going to all of these other places, focus in on the thing that really matters. Um, no, I love that. And so I'm also curious, this is like, I guess, a final, or some of our final questions here before we see if anybody else wants to ask you anything while you're here. What piece of advice would you give yourself if you could go back and give yourself advice before starting Pam Pam? What would you tell yourself?
Yeah. Oh my God. Learned so many things. But I think like I said, start building community from the beginning, if not beforehand. And better yet, if you already have a community, then like lean into that. Um, I think the other thing is like, I would have started like monetizing right away.
Mhm.
Not necessarily because from like a greed perspective, but because it's like if you're trying to build a sustainable business, then it needs to be clear right away, like how that's going to happen. And testing it out because like other things, like getting your pricing and how much you're charging, like the business model is part of the product and how you're experimenting with that. And it matters a lot less if you have like a lot of money to waste, but if you don't, then that's a really, really core part of it. So I wish we had like thought of like done that from the beginning. Um, or earlier, I guess. So I think those are kind of like two main things. And um and yeah, you're just trying to do so many things at once. I mean, I think there's like other boring, like we didn't start working on our like SEO strategy till like a year after like a year and a half actually after we launched it. And it's like, I wish we had done that earlier. There's so many things you have to do.
You're like, I work a lot.
Yeah.
But I can tell you are having fun over there. What is one type of map that you really wish you'd see or that you're like holding out for? You can't wait for the day that this type of map happens on PamPam.
Oh, good question. In general, like I want to see like more collaborative maps, like just like weird maps where people are like adding things together. I guess that's like a lot of the projects that have inspired me are like there's an amazing mapping project called Querying the Map. It's made by people in Montreal who share queer stories on a map. That's like a really, really influential project for me, even before my days at PamPam. And another project was somebody made a map project that was like places I've cried to in New York City or something. And it's like people would add like where they've cried to in New York. And so that kind of stuff I really, really love. It's not necessarily like monetizable and so it's like but that's the kind of thing that I really love and I would love to see more of that in PamPam.
Oh, I love that. I can imagine so many different creative ones may pop up. Like I remember at some point along the way in my tech career, somebody was trying to make an app that would show you like free bathrooms in New York too, like public bathrooms to go to, or ones that have like the changing for kids and stuff too to make it easier to navigate. And it's stuff like that that is very community driven because it's one of those things where if you know, you know, but when we have tools like PamPam, then more people could actually know. So, final reflection here. What's one hope you have for the future of software or the tech industry at large?
Yeah, I mean, I think just going back to what you just said, like I want software to be like more like community centric, focus on like the needs of the communities that are living it. And a lot more purpose built also. It's like, here's the thing that this software is doing, and then you do it, and then you like get out and you go live your life. And I think those things are kind of like hand in hand, you know.
Awesome. I actually thought of actually a couple more questions with what you were saying with like the purpose built and community driven. I was thinking about like your day to day, right? The different shifts and even computer time at night. And I really am curious for a sustainability perspective for you, Helena, as the founder, balancing all of this. Like, do you ever feel over teched out, like you have too much screen time? Do you feel like there's a lot of mental health ups and downs? How do you take care of yourself?
Yes, definitely too much screen time, and it's something I need to work on. Oh.
Oh, you are.
But I mean, weekends are like time to unplug for sure. So I'll like try to like go outdoors a lot. So like being outdoors is like really, really important and like getting out in nature specifically, like not just in a city, but like going to the ocean or like seeing trees, like being in the woods. Like I think like nature definitely has a place like that that is really important.
Yeah, I love that. I've come to that conclusion too. Like I kind of keep track on how intense I was on my computer that week definitely has to be balanced out by like time in the woods. It's the only way. But thank you for answering that. I know Meg stayed on for a while because she's very interested in this topic too. She's got some stuff going on with her family and she was excited to hear from you. So thank you so much for the conversation. Is there anything else that you would want to add or tell anybody listening in on the topic?
Um, no, no. No, I think we covered it.
You're like, some things they're gonna have to find out themselves.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Helena. This was great. This is so, so helpful. I'm so grateful to you for, taking the time so we can talk through these things because it's really like it really is such important stories to tell. And I just love Pam Pam. So I'm glad you're really leading with the what does it mean to create software that builds connection in person and that's fun. So I appreciate you.
Yay, thank you so much for having me.